Okay, everybody, thank you for tuning into the Hunt Fish New England podcast. I wasn't going to do this. We're already in February, and I decided, this isn't about me. There are a lot of people I have to thank for where we're at as a podcast and as a channel and just a general platform to showcase New England's hunting and fishing industry, specifically the services and the different products that come out of this region. They're all amazing. We've made really incredible connections throughout the past year, and it would just be a disservice to not at least acknowledge those people and at least spread the word about these great companies and people behind them. So we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to talk about Crazy Hick and also fresh baits, a couple specific lures. We had probably the best 5 minutes of fishing, at least for me, of my life, had with those. We're going to talk about the different expos that we engaged in, such as the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo. This is our sign from that. Thank you, Dan Kenny. And we'll get into HUNTSTOCK 2023. And if you don't know, they have incredible door prizes. The first raffle and door prize I ever won was from HUNTSTOCK 2023. It's the Duren Knife, specifically the Big Woods Bucks 1 of 1 edition. And hopefully you can see this. But this was signed from the man himself, Mr. Hal Blood. So we're gonna touch on that. We'll touch on a somewhat otherwise unsuccessful deer season that fortunately did end with the harvest. And we'll also talk about this right here, first black bear. It was specifically a black bear in Maine killed during a hound hunt, and brought her back, got the Euro done here in Mass. So we'll cover all of that in this episode. All right, so let's talk about 2023. We had this podcast started in 2020, and we literally aired or recorded our first episode. It was February 2020, and we did the What is Hunt Fish New England. Nobody knew about us other than us and a few people who followed us on Instagram, but we shot that first episode and did absolutely nothing with it because the pandemic happened, and Cameron and I each had kids during COVID, and specifically that first year of COVID, and things got a little wild. And in 2020, oh goodness, my timeline's all messed up. 2022, I recorded a couple more episodes, and specifically with Jeff Clan from Brackish Outfitters, and then with Steve Election from Unique Lures. And then what happened is I decided it was smart to not just work full-time in Boston when I live in Central Mass, but to also start up a landscape company. And that took all my time, and the podcast and channel went to the wayside. And then in 2023, at the beginning of 2023, I had actually had some things happen in my personal life. And then I realized, I started this podcast. Cameron and I, we started this podcast for a reason, and I need to see it through. So I built up the courage early 2023 to really go full force with the podcast, or at least to the degree I was able to possibly do it. And I'm glad I did. So in 2023, early 2023, I just went on Instagram. We had a really good following, and I started connecting with people who were followers and who we were also following, whose companies we really admired, and specifically, these New England companies. And started making connections, and people were more than happy to come on. They had the same value systems as us, local companies, outdoor-driven companies, supporting one another. We're a small, tight-knit community, and I was really welcomed in. So one of the first people I actually met early 2023 was Dan Kenny. And if you've been to the New England Fishing Expo or the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo or the New England Swim Bait Expo, the man behind all of that, he had his own show. It was called Go Fish Dan. You can see it on YouTube now. I shot an episode with Dan, and I'd always been a consumer of those expos, and I wanted to get to know the guy behind them. So Dan came on to the podcast, and we shot it. It was pretty cool, actually. We filmed it in the back office of his son's tackle shop, Ben's Tackle Shack. Yeah, Dan is such a good dude, and he was like, hey, I know we're here promoting the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo. I have a couple tables. Why don't you get in on one? And we seized the opportunity. And again, that's where, if you're watching on the video, it's just a cardboard sign, but this was the specific sign that was at our booth. Had never done an expo, had never done anything live. Everything was just recorded. We were only 3 podcasts in at that time. And so glad we did. We met so many amazing people who we actually had on the podcast, not just as a live recording during that expo, but they came back and did full-length episodes with us. In particular, AJ Hunter from Hunt and who else did we have on there? Josh Treadwell from Bend It Fishing. Just a couple examples of people who we made connections with at that show, and then came on to do a full-length episode with us. So that was a really good ego boost, and a big thanks to Pat Guyette from Hunt Suburbia and from HUNTSTOCK, who came by and was encouraging people to come by our booth, and we got a lot of followers and support from those guys. So thank you to Pat. And that was just a really good spring forward for us, and we had a lot of other people on the podcast, and we were off to a really good start. Pat was one of the guests we had early on. We had the folks from 40 Up Tip Up Company. Go check out our video. We just landed a couple really quality salmon with those tip ups. They're amazing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everybody who we had on, because you can just look. But as you'll realize, come May, we lost a lot of steam, and that landscape company I had mentioned got in the way amongst some other things in life. So we slowed down over the summer, which was fine because we weren't really getting in the field. Everything we were doing, we were really working a lot and just taking care of the family. But what we did get to do over the summer, I do take a trip every year. We go to Bear Spring Camp, and if anybody is into fishing, smallmouth fishing, pike fishing, Bear Spring Camp is amazing. So I've been going there since I always have to think about this because it's been so long. I've been going there since 2004. Yeah, 2004. I've been going there, 2004 or 2005. So it's been a while. I feel like just talking about it doesn't do it justice. So Bear Spring Camp, it's a 4th generation Maine company, and it's on Great Pond. It's in the Belgrade Lake region. It's on Great Pond in a really cool town called Jamaica Point over there. Well, it's Rome, Maine, and then there's Jamaica Point. So really cool part of Maine. But this company is amazing, and basically what it is, you pay per person per night, and you get your own little cabin, and it's on this big cove on this massive, and I'm going to call it a pond. It's considered like the biggest pond. For some reason, it's not a lake. I don't know why, but it's a great pond. And they're clean. They have electricity, heat, gas heat through a propane stove, and then they have wood stoves as well. Each cabin has its own dock. You can rent boats. You can launch your own boat and house it at the dock for the week or however long you're there. And then meals are provided. So there's a base lodge. So it's a short walk or a drive up to the top of the hill. You get breakfast and dinner, and you just fish throughout the whole day. It's amazing. We've had really, really great experiences there. At Bear Spring, I had the best 5 minutes of fishing of my life. So there was at least 2 hatches going on. There was like a stonefly hatch and a mayfly hatch happening at the same time. And with your sunglasses on, with your polarized shades on, if you looked at the water, you could see the emergers, and then you would see, the actual fly come up. But what was happening was the smallmouth it was pre-spawn, and they were active, males and females. It was amazing. And you could see the bass actually coming, and they're just eating all the emergers before they hit the surface. So I'm in the boat, and I always have tied on a Crazy Hick bait company. It's the floating Ned bum. It's hopefully the camera sees that well. It's just a black with red speck Ned. It's classic. And I like to throw it with just an 1/8 ounce head. This one is from Lead Free Bass Jigs. And I like the lighter one. I feel like I get hung up less up in those glacial lakes. It's easy to get hung up on if you have a heavier Ned head, and I feel like I can pop those loose faster. So I'm on the boat. I'm seeing all these smallies subsurface eating all these emergers. So I take that exact Ned and I throw it past them, I let it hit bottom, and I just drag it. And I'm thinking maybe I'll kick up some emergers. Maybe I'll look like another predator, like a crawfish or something, also trying to eat them. And then the smallmouth will, as they do, get aggressive and go after it. And first cast, boom, hit a good one. I'll put the picture up for people watching on YouTube. Hit one, and it was probably like a 3-pounder. Take that one off, throw it back out, catch another one on the Ned. And I'm thinking in my head, well, if they're still here, I'm going to try to upgrade. So I threw something that I bought at the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo, and it's by Fresh Baitz, and it's the Scorpion. And this, when I first saw it, I didn't really know what to think. And these things absolutely slay. So this was, I threw this right after as an upgrade. This is I don't know what they call the specific color. To me, it's like red shad, if you know anything about the Berkeley line. It's black and like a red purple. I threw this out there and I did the same exact presentation, just dragged it. And the thing that's cool about the Fresh Baits is everything floats. So this is sitting on a small jig head, and these little claws, I can just imagine it down there just coming up like a crawfish, and I'm dragging it through that hot zone. And I got hooked up again, and it was that was the third and final fish I got from that bout. But the guy I was in the boat with, my buddy Brian, was just like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "That was the best 5 minutes of fishing I've ever seen." And it was the best 5 minutes of fishing I've ever had. Of course, we didn't have the GoPro going, but it was just a great time. The weather was tough. That was a little break in the weather during that whole week. But I can't recommend Bear Spring enough. I mean, I wouldn't be going there for almost 20 years now if it wasn't so good. So, that was our big summer trip. And then I was cutting a lot of lawns for the rest of the summer. But what actually ended up coming up was HUNTSTOCK. So HUNTSTOCK was such a breath of fresh air. I had actually closed out my landscape company around the same time as HUNTSTOCK. So this was like a good reset for me. I wanted to focus all my time outside of my 9 to 5 on the podcast. I liked the whole landscaping thing. I was making good money, meeting cool people, but I feel like the podcast and the YouTube channel was really where my interests were always at and my motivations were always at. So if you've been listening to the podcast over the past month, 2 months, a lot of our episodes were actually recordings from HUNTSTOCK 2023. Dugdale Knives, Bob and Wyatt Howe, episode 1 with KBB Outdoors, Kyle Bentall, who had just an absolutely amazing deer season. But I met him at the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo. I saw him again at HUNTSTOCK, and then he came on the podcast, and we released a second episode actually, because that man at HUNTSTOCK called his shots. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill a deer, a mature buck, at least one in each Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine," and the kid did it. Cheers to Kyle. So, HUNTSTOCK was amazing, and thank you to Pat and Pat for what they do and their team do. It was a really, really great time. We met so many good people, made a lot of really good connections, and like I said, I was going to talk about it a little bit more. So at HUNTSTOCK, they have all the seminars, all the leaders and the hunting industry and outdoor industry there. whether they're content creators or people selling products or services for hunting. But what they also did was they have their door prizes and they have raffles. And I was fortunate enough to have hunted with Mike Stevens. And if you listen to the Big Woods Bucks podcast, they have Guide Mike on. And Mike is an amazing guy, and it was so good to see him at HUNTSTOCK too. He was going through some stuff last year, but still got out in the field and put a buck down. And Mike's just one of those guys who makes a really big impression on you. So it was great to see him and the rest of the Big Woods Bucks team there. And then I bump into a buddy from high school or from middle school. I haven't seen him in a long, long time, and we're chopping it up, and we're there at the raffle after, I think it was day one, and day one or day two. Either way, my my raffle ticket gets called, and I didn't know what I had just won. So I go up, and people are like, "Dude, you're so lucky," and I'm way in the back, so I got to walk through the whole crowd to get to this thing. And I won the Big Woods Bucks 1 of 1 Duren knife, and one of the members of Big Woods Bucks handed it over to me. I took a picture, and I was kind of like in awe. I couldn't believe I had actually won something. I've never won a raffle, but never mind this knife. And it meant a lot to me. It was obviously made by a local company. I had hunted with Big Woods Bucks that first year. They were at Lake Parlin Lodge, and I had just seen Guide Mike, and it was surreal. And I'm walking through the crowd, and people are like, "Dude, you're so lucky," and blah blah blah, and like people like wanted to see it, and like I think one dude was holding on to it and teared up. It was interesting. And a gentleman stopped me, and he goes, "Hey, like I just want to talk to you. I did the laser engraving on that knife." He's like, "I just want you to know this is a 1 of 1 knife. Like nobody else will ever have this knife, nor will there be another one made exactly like it." And I didn't really know what to say, but he looked at me and he goes, "You need to have the big man sign that thing." And by the big man, he meant Hal. So I went to the Big Woods Bucks booth and reintroduced myself to Hal, and he was kind enough to sign it for me. So yeah, that's in the case, and I keep that here in the office / gym / recording studio that we're in right now. So that was very memorable. I'll keep that knife, in my family. Cool knife, and I felt very fortunate to have to be the owner of that for now. So yeah, that was HUNTSTOCK. Like I said, we recorded a lot of great episodes and met a lot of great people. Coming out of HUNTSTOCK was probably the most epic adventure I've had in the outdoors. So this was the second year I've gone on a hound hunt, and this is with Backwoods Gun Dogs, specifically Maine guide Devin Cooley. And this is up in the Moosehead area. If you have never been on a hound hunt, just do it. Just do it. Who cares if it's out of your price range? Make it in your price range. Just go do it before you die. If you like to hunt, you will absolutely adore this hunt. It's undescribable. So yeah, we went up, and if anybody listens to the Goal podcast, Gun Owners Action League, I was a guest on that podcast 2 or 3 episodes ago, and I told the story about this kill, but I'll tell it again here because we are recapping the year after all. I don't even know where to start. So we go up for a week. So when you go up to hunt with Devin, he's got lodging, he's got the dogs, he's got everything. All you got to do is show up and feed yourself. But there's tons of bedrooms, clean, full bath, full kitchen. So if you bring up food, you can cook everything there. That's what we did. It was actually kind of nice to be able to like choose what we ate, but also have like a big, nice, clean kitchen to do it in. So yeah, you go up there for the week, and what we did, it was Cameron, Ray, and I. So Ray is our hunting partner and friend, and It's just every year we try to do something new, the three of us. So this was our second year up with Deb, and we went up again because Ray couldn't make it last year. He had a family issue, so we wanted to make sure we did this experience all together, which actually, and it was kind of funny because unfortunately Cam had some issues and wasn't able to come up with us this week, but at least Ray got to go up for that experience. Cameron went the week before us and got his first black bear, which was great, and congrats to him. But yeah, it was like the first day. We got on one bear, and I just kept bringing the dogs through streams, and they must have gone like 10 plus miles that day. We didn't get a bear nonetheless. And then some rain rolled in Monday night. Tuesday, because of the rain that continued until about noon, we couldn't bring the dogs out. The dogs can't get on a track in the rain, obviously. But yeah, we brought the fishing stuff, and it was fun. Devin gave us a location to go to do some hunting. Sorry, to go do some brook trout fishing. And Ray and I, we got into a few native brook trout, which was really, really fun. I'll release a short on that, but basically all we did is we rolled up, we dug some worms, and we just, because it had just rained, and all it did was rain last year, the river was super high. So we were just fishing like the deep pools on the edge of the river. And we didn't even have a split shot on. We were just, kind of like how you would straight line do like nymph fly fishing. We were doing it like that. We were getting into them, and I did have a fly rod on me. I was expecting to do some like long casts, catch some like 5-pound brookies. So I had a 7-weight rod on me. It was a custom rod that was built by Jeff Klein from Brackish Flies. It's amazing rod. But it's not for nymphing, and it's not for catching native brook trout. It's a 7-weight. Thing's stout. It's what I catch pike and largemouth and smallmouth bass on. But this rod is so sensitive that I was actually able to, just with the leader out and a small pheasant tail nymph on, I was just nymphing native brook trout out of those same pools. We were catching them with small worms. So that was a cool thing to do on Tuesday, despite not hunting. But Wednesday was my day to be in the passenger seat and be with Devin, and it was my kill day. So that day was great. The weather was perfect. There was a lot of condensation out, so tracks were going to be fresh. And we rolled up to a spot, and a bait had been hit, and Devin's like, "You want to kill this bear?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do want to kill this bear." So he let out his, I think it was 3 or 4 dogs. They got on this bear right away, and they chased that bear for a few hours. This bear was behaving like a mature boar would, for example. It wouldn't tree, it wouldn't bay, and it wouldn't cross any roads, despite us doing every tactic we had in the book. But to the north of us was a mountain, and we were like, yeah, with our luck, this bear is going to go up that mountain. And, just as soon as we say that, that's exactly what the bear does. And mind you, it was like 2 to 3 hours into the hunt, and we were like, yeah, this thing's going over the mountain, and it stops just before the crest of the mountain, maybe like 100 feet in elevation beyond, the crest of the mountain. And I'm looking at Devin. He's like, that thing's probably in a hole, and the dogs are just, pinning it in there, or there's just some random tree, or it's bait up. He's like, but it's not moving. Like, let's go. So it was cool because in order to get up there, we had to drive, and drive. So obviously we're driving. We're in the truck, but we had to drive the truck as far up as possible because we're going up the mountain. And so we had to actually hop on some ATV trails, and until we couldn't go any further. And we had about, I want to say 700 or 800 yard hike into there, and it was just it was an amazing terrain change every 100, 200 yards. We started off walking through some regen. Then we ended up in this big oak flat. That was pretty. I was going to ask if this was classic untouched Maine forest, because it looked that way. Just a big oak flat, no regen growth anywhere. Then we come through like kind of a newer cut. And at this point, we're almost to the same elevation as the dogs. And as we're walking, the dogs are just getting louder, 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 louder. Then we go through this little hemlock forest, and then we get to the same elevation as the dogs. And this hemlock forest turns into stone and moss, a bunch of dead hemlocks, and just kind of like rock face. And we're about 50 yards from the dogs, and they're hammering this bear. And that walk I just described, Devin was pacing us, checking in to see how we're doing. He wanted us to be on point. He didn't want to rush in there. He wanted everybody to be safe. And that made me more calm. I'd never killed a black bear, never mind one in the way I'm about to explain. And yeah, we're like 50 yards from the bear, and Devin gives us the rundown. He assigned Ray a task to help bring the dogs out, and told me, when I need to rack one, safety on, and, for me just to follow his lead when we get to the bear. So we walk in, we close the distance, we get to the bear, and I'll try to describe this the best I can. Just imagine like a kind of like a small, maybe like, I don't know, 20 foot like rock face. And at the bottom of that rock face, it's just like a pile of rocks. And this pile of rocks, some of them are round, some of them are like more flat and slaty, kind of like a tabletop, for example. And there was this formation that almost was like the same size as a single doghouse, and it was moss overgrown on it, and there was like a 2 foot by 1 foot hole, and that's what that bear slipped into and was in that hole and was not coming out. There was no exit hole. There was just, the only way out was the way he came in, but he's got 6 very angry dogs to mess with. So we get up there, and Devin, gave Ray an assignment, pulled some dogs off. I'm standing on top of this doghouse, this stone doghouse, and Devin looks at me. He's like, all right. He's like, you have one racked? I had one racked. He was basically like, I'm going to pull these dogs off, and you're going to shoot this thing in the head. And so I'm standing above it, and I just kind of like reach in there with the 300 Savage, and the bear turns its head like this. And I just sent one right like into its ear. So like its mandibular process and the back of its, the base of its skull is like blown off. It was just, yeah, I put her down. So we had to put a lead around her neck, and I had to drag her out of that hole. And that was intense, but she turned out to be a 150-pound sow. So not the biggest bear in the woods, not the smallest either. And she had this really cool chevron on the chest. But I'm not going to apologize for the size. I'm so happy with that bear. I mean, I have it hanging here, and I'll be having probably a full mountain of her done in the near future. But we've been eating bear since. So yeah, it was amazing. And Ray has this unofficial title as like the #1 big game dragger in Maine. So Mike Stevens, who I told you about, tells the story about Ray the best. When Ray shot a buck with him that year, we were with Big Woods Bucks, and Ray had a similar thing. He dragged this bear pretty much solo for me, about another 700-800 yards down the mountain to the truck. So that was amazing. So we brought the bear to Indian Hill, checked her in there, and then after we checked her in, we brought her back to the lodge. Devin and his guys got her quartered out and everything for me right away, put in the freezer, and then we were there for a couple more days. Ray got his kill, and we were out of there a day early, and with smiles on our faces, a lot of bear meat coming home, and obviously that was due to a couple of successful hunts thanks to Devin. So Devin, if you're listening to this, thank you so much, man. And anybody who's ever hunted with Devin or follows Devin understands how much work and how much integrity he has. So it's a pleasure to hunt alongside him. And yeah, I'll always remember that hunt for sure. So yeah, that led up to deer season, and I had to be honest, I didn't shoot the bow at all. And I'm just going to be very blunt. I did not kill anything with the bow this year. I got on them, but there was, as a couple of my recent friends have said, shooting the bow, the skills that come with it, they're perishable. Bow hunting and shooting a bow, they're perishable skills. You need to be on them. And I knew that. I just hadn't been shooting the bow. So I had a pretty disappointing hunting season in terms of deer archery, but I did hunt using some local products. If I had killed, I would promote them right now. I don't want to say I had a terrible deer archery season and I used these products and people think it was because of that I didn't kill it. No, it was just my own skill set, but it was an honor to at least use those products, and they put me in the best position possible. I just couldn't close the deal, unfortunately. But yeah, first day of shotgun, I had a buck come in on me, and this thing looked like it just got hit by a car, and I passed on him because I was meat hunting at that point. But ended up shooting a doe first day of shotgun. Very happy about that. I stuffed her in the back of my sedan. She goes in the rigger, and I bring her to the check station, as you have to do in Massachusetts for anything killed the first week. And the guys and gals at DCR thought that was pretty funny, and they all had their phones out taking pictures of this doe and rigor mortis in my backseat. So thought that was pretty funny. And then, we recorded part 2 of the New England Slam with Kyle Bentall, as I was alluding to earlier. And you got to watch that one. And I have to say thanks to Kyle. He had me to his house and we looked at all of his racks from all of his kills this year. They were just all, even the smallest one was cool, like a big squiggly 4-point, and all the way to I think it was 150s buck. I forget the exact measurement, but the thing was a tank. And yeah, just thanks to Kyle. I mean, I put a short out from that episode on our YouTube channel, and that really boomed. That short popped off and really got us a lot of followers, and I can't thank Kyle enough. And on the topic of YouTube, like I said, I did a podcast with Pat Guyette early on in 2023, and I was just doing the podcast and I was only releasing on Spotify and it was working. I was doing it for fun. I wasn't trying to get advertisers or nothing like that. And Pat looked at me, he's like, dude, I really like what you're doing. He's like, but you need to get on YouTube and you should think about getting onto other platforms. And I kind of muddled around with it. And it wasn't until over the summer I actually did the YouTube page. And at that point, creating the YouTube page with, Pat's encouragement, and then starting to release episodes, and then with the help of Kyle and him letting me use, his story on our channel, we got a really good following, and it made me think, what am I really doing with the channel? It's not just going to be a podcast. This is going to turn into actually utilizing New England outdoor products in the field. So that's what we're going to do. So that was kind of how we closed out the year. It was, it wasn't the most dense every week. We had something. Like I said, we had a lot going on, but it was a quality year. And a big part of it was to all those people who supported us and believed in us and got us to this point where we're at now. And we're very, very excited for 2024. So, yeah, let's just keep it at that. We just went to the New England Fishing Expo and got a bunch of gear. So we're going to start doing some gear reviews as well in 2024. We're going to use a lot of these products in the field. So it's all happening this year because of thanks to all you listeners and all the other people in the outdoor industry who were supportive of us and encouraged us. So we thank everybody who's listening to this, and we thank everybody who's been part of the journey so far. So that's our 2023 recap, and looking forward to having a successful 2024 with you all. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.